I found the envelope at 6:12 a.m., precisely between my blood pressure pills and the ceramic sugar bowl my wife bought in 1989. I wake up at 6 every morning. 72 years of habit does not dissolve just because your heart has been broken. The kettle goes on. 2 slices of rye bread in the toaster. 1 egg, soft-boiled for exactly 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The kitchen window faces east, and if the sky is clear, the light hits the oak cabinets Eleanor insisted on refinishing herself the summer before she died. That morning the sky was colorless. The envelope was cream thick, with my full legal name typed in bold. Harold Bennett Sr. No, Dad. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and opened it carefully along the edge, the way I used to open utility bills. Old reflex. Inside was a letter on the letterhead of Parker and Dunn Family Law Associates. The words were polite. They always are. We are writing to inform you that your son, Mr. Daniel Bennett, has expressed concern regarding your cognitive well-being petition for temporary guardianship, psychiatric evaluation scheduled for March 3rd at 9:30 a.m. Guardianship. I read the paragraph twice. Then a third time. The kettle screamed behind me. I turned it off, poured the water over my tea bag, and sat down at the kitchen table. The chair creaked under me. The same chair Daniel used to swing his legs from when he was 8 years old, cereal dripping down his chin. Temporary guardianship. The house was quiet except for the low hum of the Sub-Zero refrigerator. Eleanor had insisted on that refrigerator too. If we're going to spend 30 years in one house, Harold, she'd said, we'll buy quality. We bought this house in 1998 for $420,000. It's worth $1.1 million now, according to the last property tax assessment. No mortgage. Paid off in 2013. I remember the exact date, September 17th. I brought home a cheap bottle of champagne and we drank it out of mismatched coffee mugs. I flipped to the second page. Attached was a supporting statement. Daniel's signature at the bottom. My son's handwriting had grown sharper over the years. Less round. More aggressive. Recent episodes of confusion. Failure to manage utilities. Risk of financial mismanagement. I looked around the kitchen. The electric bill was pinned neatly to the corkboard by the phone. Paid on February 1st. $287.14. The water bill, $96.32. Scheduled for auto withdrawal on the 20th. My investment account statement lay in a folder on the sideboard. As of January 31st, $742,518.34 in diversified funds. Pension, $3,980 monthly. Social Security, $2,114. Confusion. The tea had gone bitter. I reached for my phone and checked the date. February 15th, Eleanor's birthday. She would have been 70 this year. I almost laughed. Instead, I called Daniel. He answered on the 4th ring. Morning, Dad. His voice was smooth, alert, office voice. Morning, I said. I received something interesting from Parker and Dunn. Silence, just for a fraction of a second. Oh, that. Yes, I replied. That. He exhaled heavily, as if burdened by my stubborn survival. Dad, we've talked about this. You left the stove on last month. I boiled pasta and forgot about it. I was in the yard trimming the hedges. The timer went off. You didn't hear it. I was outside. Another pause. Look, he said, his tone shifting to patient authority. Lisa and I are worried. You've been alone since Mom passed. It's not safe. We think it's time to consider assisted living. Just an evaluation to start. Assisted living. The word settled like dust on old furniture. I live in a 5-bedroom house with a security system, Daniel. I drive. I manage my finances. I meet Frank for chess every Thursday at 2 p.m. at the library. You forgot Avery's recital. I closed my eyes. I hadn't forgotten. Lisa had told me the wrong time, 0.7 p.m. instead of 5. I was there, I said quietly, for the second half. Dad, he pressed, this isn't about pride. It's about safety. If the court approves temporary guardianship, we can help manage things. Pay your bills. Oversee the property. Oversee the property. There it was. You mean the house? I said. Of course the house. It's a lot for you. The house. 3,400 square feet. Brick exterior. Maple floors. Eleanor's garden out back, with the white hydrangeas she loved. Property taxes. $14,820 last year. I paid them in one installment. It's in my name, I said. For now, Daniel replied before he could stop himself. The silence after that was no longer fractional. It was thick. For now, I repeated. You know what I mean, he rushed. Eventually, it'll come to me anyway. We're just trying to plan responsibly. Eventually, I looked at the envelope again. The evaluation was already scheduled. Without asking me, March 3 RD.9:30 am. You tried to have me declared incompetent, I said, keeping my voice even. Without telling me. We were going to tell you. When? Soon. I stood up and walked to the window. A delivery truck rolled past slowly. Ordinary life, indifferent to betrayal. How much is Shady Grove Estates these days? I asked. What? The assisted living facility you toured in December. The one that cost $6,800 a month for a one-bedroom. Another silence. How did you? I read brochures too, I said. I'm old, Daniel, not blind. He shifted tactics. Dad, this is getting dramatic. No one's stealing anything. We just need legal authority to help if something happens. Something like what? Like you forgetting to pay taxes. I paid $14,820 in November. You're missing the point. No, I said softly. I think I'm finally seeing it. On the counter, the egg sat untouched, its shell cooling. The envelope lay open like a wound. Temporary guardianship would give him control over my accounts, my house, my medical decisions, my life, and Daniel, for all his MBA polish and expensive cufflinks, had forgotten one inconvenient detail. The deed to this house is in my desk drawer, and I have not lost my mind. Not yet. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. Daniel arrived on Sunday at 3:07 p.m., which told me two things. First, this had been scheduled. Second, Lisa had chosen the time. 3 o'clock on a Sunday is strategic. Late enough that you've had lunch and your blood sugar is steady. Early enough that neighbors are home, curtains half open, witnesses to civility. I was in the den when the doorbell rang. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed once. Late as always by 4 minutes. I've never fixed it. Eleanor liked it imperfect. I opened the door myself. Daniel stood there in a navy overcoat, camel scarf tucked, just so. Lisa hovered half a step behind him, her beige boots spotless despite the wet driveway. She carried a leather folder under her arm, the kind realtors use. Hi, Dad, she said brightly, as if we were here for lemon bars. Come in, I replied. The foyer smelled faintly of furniture polish and the chicken soup I'd made that morning. I always cook on Sundays. It makes the house feel occupied. They stepped inside and paused, performing that little ritual of looking around as though assessing structural damage. You kept the entry rug, Lisa observed. It's Persian, I said. Han nodded. 1999. Daniel cleared his throat. Can we sit? We moved to the living room. The leather sofa side under Daniel's weight. Lisa perched upright on the armchair Eleanor used to knit in. The afternoon light cut across the hardwood floor, illuminating dust I hadn't noticed before. I took my usual seat by the fireplace. Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out a stack of papers. We didn't want you blindsided, he began. You mailed the petition to my house, I said calmly. That qualifies as blindsided. He winced. Lisa jumped in. Harold, we're not your enemies. We love you. This is about planning. Planning for what? For decline, she said too quickly. The word hung between us like an accusation. Daniel placed papers on the coffee table. I didn't touch them. This, he said, tapping the top page, is a durable power of attorney. It would allow me to manage your financial affairs if needed. The guardianship petition is just a precaution in case you resist. In case I resist, I repeated. It's standard procedure, Lisa said. Our attorney recommended filing both simultaneously. Courts move slowly. I glanced at the header. Durable power of attorney, financial and medical. Comprehensive, aggressive. What exactly would you manage? I asked. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on knees. His watch flashed silver, Rolex, I believe. Anniversary gift from Lisa last year. Cost him around $12,000. Well, he said, the house for one. It's a significant asset. Zillow estimates it at $1.14 million now. I don't use Zillow, I replied. I use the county assessor. $1.1 million flat. Lisa smiled tightly. Even so, it's inefficient for one person to live here. You could sell, downsize, invest the equity. I have investments. Daniel's jaw tightened. Dad, you have $742,000 in a brokerage account. Markets fluctuate. It's risky for someone in your position. My position? Your age. 72. As if the number itself invalidated competence. And my pension? I asked. $3,980 monthly, he recited without hesitation. And Social Security? $2,114. He had done his homework. Impressive, I said quietly. You know my finances better than some spouses. Lisa leaned forward. We're trying to protect you. If something happened and you were hospitalized, we'd have no authority to act. You mean you'd have no authority to sell? That's unfair. No, I said. It's accurate. Daniel's patience cracked slightly. Dad, why are you being so difficult? This house will be mine eventually. Why not streamline things now? There it was again. Eventually. Because, I replied evenly, I am not dead. Silence. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. A car passed outside, tires hissing over wet pavement. Daniel pushed the papers closer to me. Just sign the power of attorney. We can withdraw the guardianship petition once everything's formalized. No court, no drama. Withdraw. I raised an eyebrow. So the petition is leverage. It's precaution. It's pressure. Lisa's voice hardened. Harold, if you refuse the evaluation on March 3rd, the court will notice. That won't reflect well. Reflect well on whom? On you. I leaned back in my chair and studied them both. Daniel's foot was bouncing, a childhood habit. Lisa's fingers tapped the folder rhythmically. They had rehearsed this conversation, probably at their granite kitchen island, sipping oat milk lattes, calculating timelines. How much is your mortgage now? I asked suddenly. Daniel blinked. What? Your house in Brookfield. You bought it for $860,000 in 2019. 5% down if I recall. Lisa stiffened. It's irrelevant, Daniel said. Is it? Rates have gone up. Adjustable, wasn't it? He said, nothing. Must be around $4,900 a month now, I continued mildly. Plus property taxes. Plus Avery's private school. $22,000 annually. Lisa's lips pressed thin. You been spying on us? She snapped. No, I said. Listen. Daniel stood abruptly. This is not about us. It rarely is, I replied. He paced once across the rug, then turned back. Fine. You want honesty? Yes. Managing everything centrally makes sense. We could refinance the house in my name, pull equity. There it is, I said softly. His mouth closed. Lisa interjected, her tone syrupy again. Harold, that equity would stay in the family. It already is in the family, I said. It's me. The room felt smaller. Daniel exhaled sharply. If you don't cooperate, the court can assign an independent guardian. And you'd lose control, I finished. That's not the point. It's exactly the point. He stared at me, searching for confusion, for hesitation, for weakness. I gave him none. Instead, I reached for the papers and flipped through them slowly. Pages of dense legal language, broad authority clauses, asset transfer provisions. You've included authority to change beneficiary designations, I noted. In case necessary, Lisa said. In case convenient, I corrected. Daniel's face flushed. Dad, enough. I set the stack back down neatly. No, I said. Now we begin. Begin what? Documentation. He frowned. From this moment forward, I continued calmly. All communication regarding my mental capacity will be in writing. I will attend the March 3rd evaluation voluntarily, and I will bring my own attorney. Lisa's eyes flickered. You don't need an attorney, she said quickly. I disagree. Daniel stared at me as though seeing a stranger. You think we're trying to rob you? I think, I said carefully, that you've mistaken aging for incompetence, and you've mistaken inheritance for entitlement. He looked away first. I won't sign, I added. The words landed with finality. Daniel gathered the papers abruptly, shoving them back into his coat. Lisa rose stiffly. "You're making this adversarial," she said. "No," I replied. "You did that when you filed the petition behind my back." They moved toward the door. At the threshold, Daniel paused. "You're going to regret fighting this," he said quietly. I met his eyes. "Daniel," I said, "you try to commit me." His jaw clenched. "I built this house," I continued. "I paid every dollar. I buried my wife from this living room. You will not erase me from it, because it's financially efficient." He opened the door. Cold air rushed in. "This isn't over," he said. "I know," I replied. After they left, the house returned to its natural soundscape, the clock ticking, the faint whir of the HVAC, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I walked to my desk in the study. The deed lay exactly where I had placed it years ago, in a fireproof folder. Owner, Harold Bennett Sr. Clear and unencumbered. I ran my fingers over the paper, then reached for my phone. It was 4:12 p.m. I dialed a number I hadn't used in years. "Margaret Collins." A familiar voice answered. "Margaret," I said, "it's Harold Bennett. I believe my son just declared war." A pause, then calmly. "Good. Let's make sure you win." March 3rd arrived with surgical precision. At 7:00 a.m., I shaved more carefully than usual. Fresh blade. Aftershave Eleanor used to complain about, "You smell like a hardware store, Harold." I wore my charcoal suit, the one from Avery's high school graduation. Navy tie, polished shoes. If they wanted to present me as confused, I would disappoint them. At 8:15 a.m., Margaret Collins pulled into my driveway in her silver Lexus. Margaret has been my attorney for 22 years. Estate planning, tax strategy, the kind of woman who reads footnotes in legislation for leisure. She stepped out in a tailored gray coat, hair pulled tight, leather briefcase under her arm. "You look sharper than most CEOs I deal with," she said as she approached. "I've had practice surviving incompetence," I replied. She smiled thinly. "Good. Keep that tone." The hearing was scheduled at the County Probate Court, Room 4B, 9:30 a.m. sharp. Daniel had requested an expedited temporary guardianship order, citing urgent concerns. I had insisted through Margaret on attending personally. The courthouse smelled like old paper and floor cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. We checked in at the clerk's desk at 9:12. Daniel and Lisa were already seated on a wooden bench outside the courtroom. Daniel wore a dark suit, no scarf today. Lisa had chosen navy, conservative, respectable. They looked like they were applying for a loan. Daniel's eyes flicked to Margaret, then back to me. "You brought counsel," he said. "I told you I would," I replied. Lisa leaned toward him and whispered something. He nodded once. At 9:34, the bailiff opened the door. "Bennett, guardianship petition." The word echoed in the hallway. "Guardianship." We entered. Judge Eleanor Ruiz presided. Late 50s. Reading glasses perched low on her nose. Efficient posture. No visible patience for theatrics. Daniel's attorney, a young man with too much gel in his hair, rose first. "Your Honor, we are petitioning for temporary guardianship of Mr. Harold Bennett, age 72, based on documented cognitive decline and financial risk exposure." Risk exposure. I folded my hands on the table. The attorney continued. "Mr. Bennett lives alone in a large property valued at approximately $1.1 million. There have been incidents of forgetfulness, missed family obligations, and unsafe behavior, including leaving kitchen appliances unattended." Judge Ruiz looked at me over her glasses. "Mr. Bennett, do you understand why you're here today?" "Yes, Your Honor," I said clearly. "My son believes I am inconvenient." A faint twitch crossed her mouth. Daniel's attorney pressed on. "We have affidavits from Mr. Bennett's son and daughter-in-law describing behavioral concerns." Lisa took the stand first. She spoke softly, controlled. "Harold has seemed confused lately. He forgot our daughter's recital. He misplaces things. He isolates." Examples, the judge asked. "He misplaced his reading glasses for 2 days." I nearly laughed. Judge Ruiz made a note. Daniel testified next. "My father has always been independent, But since my mother passed 18 months ago, he's deteriorated. He left pasta boiling unattended. He resists help managing his investment accounts, which are substantial. Over $740,000. The judge glanced up. Substantial to whom? She asked. Daniel hesitated. Well, in general. Is there evidence of financial mismanagement? She pressed. Not yet, he admitted. But there's risk. Margaret rose smoothly. Your Honor, may I? She approached the bench and handed over a folder. Exhibit A, Mr. Bennett's full cognitive evaluation conducted voluntarily yesterday by Dr. Samuel Hirsch, board-certified neurologist. Daniel's head snapped toward me. I hadn't told him. Judge Ruiz scanned the first page. MMSE score, 30 out of 30, she read aloud. No evidence of cognitive impairment. The courtroom felt smaller. Margaret continued. Exhibit B, bank statements from the past 12 months. All bills paid on time. No irregular withdrawals. No missed tax payments. Paper slid across wood. Exhibit C, property tax receipt, $14. $8.20 paid in full November 2nd. Exhibit D, brokerage statement, $7.42, $518.34. Diversified portfolio, no speculative trades. Daniel shifted in his seat. Margaret wasn't finished. Additionally, Your Honor, we have a recorded conversation from February 15th. Lisa stiffened. Daniel whispered, You recorded me? Margaret pressed play. Daniel's voice filled the courtroom. We could refinance the house in my name. Pull equity. Silence followed. Judge Ruiz looked directly at him. Mr. Bennett, were you seeking financial control over your father's assets? Daniel's face flushed crimson. That was taken out of context. Was it said? Yes, but that's sufficient. Margaret stepped back to the table. I rose when prompted. Mr. Bennett, the judge said, how would you describe your current living situation? I live independently in my home of 25 years, I replied. I cook, drive, maintain my yard, and meet friend weekly. I manage my finances without assistance. And your relationship with your son? I paused. He appears eager for inheritance. A ripple of restrained movement passed through the room. Daniel stood abruptly. That's unfair. Judge Ruiz raised a hand. Sit down. He did. Mr. Bennett, she addressed me, are you willing to accept limited assistance voluntarily if necessary? I am willing to consider help when I require it, I said. I do not currently. She nodded slowly. Then she turned to Daniel. Temporary guardianship is an extreme measure. It removes fundamental rights. Based on the medical evaluation and financial documentation presented, I see no evidence of incapacity. Daniel swallowed. The petition for temporary guardianship is denied. The words landed like a gavel strike to the chest. Lisa inhaled sharply. Judge Ruiz continued. Furthermore, I caution you, Mr. Bennett, she said, eyes fixed on Daniel, that the court does not look favorably on petitions motivated by financial interest. If your father chooses to pursue legal action for harassment or attempted exploitation, today's transcript will exist. Margaret gave me the slightest nod. Daniel stared at the table. The hearing concluded at 10:18 a.m. Outside in the hallway, Daniel caught up to us. You humiliated me, he hissed. I defended myself, I replied. You recorded a private conversation. You attempted to remove my autonomy. Lisa stepped between us. This doesn't have to escalate. It already did, Margaret said coolly. Daniel's composure fractured. You're being paranoid, Dad. We were trying to help. Help yourselves, I corrected. His voice dropped, sharp and dangerous. This isn't over. I studied him for a long moment. No, I said softly. It isn't. He turned and walked away, Lisa hurrying after him. Margaret adjusted her briefcase strap. He won't stop, she said quietly. I know. Would you like to? I looked out the courthouse window. The parking lot shimmered under pale sunlight. Ordinary cars. Ordinary lives. Yes, I said. I would. She nodded once. Then we moved to phase 2. As we stepped outside, cold March air hit my face. For the first time since that envelope appeared on my kitchen table. My hands were steady. My son had tried to take my mind. He had failed. Now I would decide what he loses. The house felt different after the hearing. Not safer. Not warmer. Sharper. as if the walls themselves had witnessed the attempt and adjusted accordingly. I returned home at 11:07 a.m. The driveway still held the faint tire tracks from Margaret's Lexus. I stood in the foyer for a moment longer than usual, listening. The refrigerator hummed. The HVAC clicked on. Somewhere in the backyard, a crow barked like an irritated landlord. Phase 2, Margaret had called it. I don't enjoy war. I built my life on maintenance, tightening bolts, paying bills early, mowing lawns before weeds get ideas. But if someone insists on fire, you don't offer them curtains. At 1:30 p.m., Margaret arrived with 2 folders and a notary. We sat at the dining room table. The long oak one Eleanor insisted could seat 12 even though we rarely had more than 6. Sunlight cut across its surface, revealing knife marks from Thanksgiving turkeys long gone. First, Margaret said, sliding the top document toward me, we revoke any prior medical information releases naming Daniel. I signed. Second, we update your will. The old will left the house to Daniel outright. The new one did not. I recommend placing the property in an irrevocable trust, Margaret continued. Primary beneficiary, the Eleanor Bennett Scholarship Fund. I allowed myself a small smile. Eleanor had been a public school teacher for 34 years. She spent her own money on classroom supplies. $200 here, $300 there. Every August. What's the endowment structure? I asked. Initial funding. The house upon your passing. Estimated current value. $1.1 million. Invested conservatively at 4% annual yield. That's roughly $44,000 per year in scholarships. $44,000 annually. Daniel had expected equity. Instead, there would be algebra textbooks and college tuition for strangers' children. And Daniel? I asked. Margaret slid the second page forward. A fixed bequest of $50,000. Out of $1.1 million. I signed. The notary stamped. The sound was heavier than a gavel. But I wasn't finished. Now, I said quietly, we address occupancy. Margaret folded her hands. He doesn't live here. No, I replied. But he has keys. 3 copies. One given in 2009 for emergencies. One after Eleanor died. One just in case. Emergencies, it turns out, are flexible concepts. By 4:00 p.m., a locksmith van was parked outside. A young man with a nose ring replaced every exterior lock. Front door, back patio, garage entry. New keys. New codes for the alarm system. I changed the Wi-Fi password to. Symbolic? Perhaps. But symbolism has teeth. At 6:12 p.m., the same minute I'd found the envelope weeks earlier, my phone rang. Daniel? I let it ring twice. Yes. I answered. You changed the alarm code. I did. You didn't tell me. I'm not required to. A pause thick with disbelief. You're punishing me. No, I said evenly. I'm protecting myself. You humiliated me in court. Now this. You filed a petition to remove my legal rights. That was precaution. It was ambition. His breath sharpened. You're overreacting. Am I? I walked into the study and opened the desk drawer where the deed now rested alongside the trust documents. I updated my estate plan today, I said. Silence. What does that mean? It means your expectations require recalibration. His voice dropped. What did you do? I ensured your mother's legacy will fund education instead of your refinancing. You can't be serious. I've never been more so. You're choosing strangers over your own son? I'm choosing gratitude over entitlement. The line crackled. You're going to regret this, he said. I already regret raising a man who thought legal coercion was love. His voice cracked then, not with remorse, but with anger. You think I wanted this? You think watching you deteriorate is easy? I scored 30 out of 30. I replied calmly. Your argument collapsed because it lacked truth. He didn't respond. You tried to commit me, I continued. You forgot one thing. What? I own the house. The silence that followed was no longer tactical. It was realization. You've poisoned this family, he said finally. No, I answered. I disinfected it. He hung up. The click fell clean. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived. From Daniel. I opened it at the same kitchen table. He requested a private reconciliation meeting. No attorneys. No hostility. I considered it. Then I invited him to dinner. Wednesday, 6:00 p.m. He arrived alone. No Lisa. No folder. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically. Structurally. I served chicken, roasted potatoes, green beans with garlic. Eleanor's recipe. We sat across from each other, like businessmen negotiating a ceasefire. I didn't know about the recording, he began. That wasn't your mistake. You think I'm greedy. I think you're leveraged. He didn't deny it. The mortgage went adjustable last year, he admitted quietly. It jumped to $5,300 a month. Avery's tuition increased. My firm cut bonuses. And you saw liquidity in brick, I said. He nodded once. I thought, he continued, eyes fixed on his plate, that accelerating things would make sense. Accelerating my death? His jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It isn't. We ate in silence for a moment. I love Mom, he said finally. I know. She would have wanted you safe. She would have wanted you honest. He looked up then, something raw flickering behind his eyes. What now, he asked. Now, I said calmly, you adjust. To what? To the reality that I am not your asset. He swallowed. And the trust, he asked. It stands. He leaned back slowly. So that's it. Yeah, as I said. That's it. He stared at the table for a long moment, then nodded once. When he stood to leave, he hesitated at the door. Do you still love me? He asked quietly. The question surprised me. I do, I said. But I don't trust you. He absorbed that without argument. When the door closed behind him, the house exhaled. I walked through each room deliberately. The living room where Eleanor once corrected essays, the kitchen where she burned toast every Sunday, the bedroom where we whispered about retirement. The locks were new. The deed was secure. The future was no longer negotiable. Outside, the hydrangeas were beginning to bud. Spring does not ask permission to arrive. It simply does. My son tried to take my mind. He forgot something fundamental. This house was built by my hands, and I am not finished living in it.